Hey, everybody. Well, welcome back to, I don't even know what to call this. Almost forgot how to use YouTube and such, but it's been it's been a while, and thanks for coming by. A lot of things have happened over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. Here with Nick Mancini, Trade the Chain's Chief Community Officer and Research Director. And we're going to hit some things on the market because I know right now, especially day after tax day, there's a lot of questions out there, a lot of people wondering what's going on, a lot of people that have been feeling the pain since the new year started. So, I guess for another episode, I can recap what's happened over the last 4 or 5 months in detail. But obviously, as a lot of you follow along, whether it's Trade the Chain, whether it's going through our Scent Galaxy development, which we're going to give updates for during this show, because I know a lot of you guys have been following that, or whether it's been car racing. So a lot of responsibilities, a lot of time, a lot of flying, and thank you guys, especially the ones that are in Trade the Chain. You guys are in the community every day. We see you there and whatnot. So, Nick, thanks for joining today. I know you just put out a spanking good newsletter yesterday for members, and kind of want to touch on that and what's going on in the market. I mean, there's a lot of volatility with downward price action heading into tax day. I know there's a lot of people, particularly ones that are watching, who I know who are just questioning what's exactly happening in the market. Maybe you could shed a little light on the big boards, kind of go over what Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing. And then once he does that, folks, we're actually going to take it down, start going to the bottom of the barrel with further altcoins heading down. And we'll also let you know a couple things that we've been seeing and following and tracking as well for opportunity, because just like you guys, on a daily basis, we're looking for opportunity. So we'll share our thoughts on that. Nick, take it away, my man.
Yes, sir. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to toss around a few charts, but I'm going to stay on the same window. So it should make things easy enough. So starting with the Bitcoin chart, I mean, just kind of zooming out on a macro basis, you can see we're still floating what is a valid trend. And obviously, we have been in many moments where Bitcoin has been on the lower end of the trend and floating it. I think this is probably one of the easier ones that we were looking at, and obviously it resulted in nearly a doubling of price action in the subsequent months. So the idea here is that if everything else aside, is if this trend lasts, it should help boost towards the back or towards the top of where we previously were. So that's a big if, and obviously there's a massive amount of macro turmoil going on right now. So what should we at least expect in the near term? So that's Luna. So if we're looking at sentiment and what I wrote yesterday in the newsletter, it still rings true. Sentiment was very high going into the end of the week, even though we had, it was tax season. Obviously, we had some topsy-turvy sentiment. We were on a downturn. As soon as we got towards, what I would call the low end of the spectrum, towards kind of the very last possible day to really make a decision. Am I going to buy? Am I going to sell? What am I going to do with my taxes? We had pretty much, the most all-time Bitcoin fake outs, extremely classic. Let's dump here. Let's lift back up, not 12 hours later, and let's continue back and in capturing price action that we've been floating around for the past, week. So very Bitcoin-y move, which, gives credence to a potential, will we actually have a great, Q2, Q3, and Q4, because we've seen this so many times, and after 3 bounces, things start to look a little bit better. But at the end of the day, what do we have, Alex? We have Ukraine. We have tax season deferred for a lot of people. And if you actually go back into previous tax seasons, let's look. So I think the deference went out to May or June last year, and we still had selling throughout that tax season last year as well. So that's another thing to watch out for. Obviously, if Ukraine continues to escalate, if China decides to make any sort of move with Taiwan, if we have another supply chain crunch, obviously another pandemic would hurt things. So we're not out of the weeds yet. But the fact that the war in Ukraine is, where it's currently moving, there's no massive surprises is the best way to say that. It's absolutely tragic and horrible. But as the market is looking at it, there are no insane market breaking surprises. Tax season is behind us. The S&P is actually looking quite fruitful. There is a inverse head and shoulders forming on the S&P 500, and we all have read the articles and heard the narratives about the S&P and NASDAQ being closely correlated with Bitcoin or vice versa. So there are just as many bullish narratives as there are bearish, Alex, and I think that's the funny part. But I think when you're talking about Bitcoin, the sellers seem exhausted. I think, I don't know, you hang out with the institutional crowd a lot more than I do, but I know that people that I have talked to are exhausted in terms of, getting rid of whatever they need for tax season. They're exhausted from the downward price action from holding as well. And it seems like, and when we talk about outflows, I mean, we saw 9 figures happen for Bitcoin over the past several weeks, but that's starting to trickle to a stop. I mean, how much more selling can we reasonably incur before demand really takes over? And I think that's probably the biggest question that people are asking right now. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. So first of all, you're absolutely correct. The markets do like certainty. If you remember the week going into right before the Ukrainian war, we had Bitcoin spiral downward in price along with everything else. And that was because of uncertainty. Market doesn't care if it's positive or negative certainty. It just needs to know when it's in limbo. And, for instance, with that geopolitical moment, whether they were going to go into the country or not, that's where the markets start to suffer a lot. I think, tax day is a big day. There's a lot of people. I saw a couple in the chat talking about it, but they have to sell in order to pay that bill. And, count your blessings. If you've profited enough the year prior in order to have a large tax bill, I would assume that's a good thing, right? That's a lucky thing. Now, paying the tax, some may have different thoughts about. But we've also had a trend where after tax day, we've had a rebound pop in the market. And one of those, right now we were speaking earlier about the 42, which you had mentioned. Not going to say called. Obviously, this is not financial advice. It's our own opinions and commentary. But we're heading in that upward direction towards 42. Can you give us some comfort into what sort of levels we should be pretty confident in once we reach and take just kind of keep those on our watch list?
Yeah, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is start with sentiment here. So sentiment, and this is one of my favorite metrics to use is for at least continuation, is when sentiment is bullish and it starts to hover around the neutral level, meaning it kind of comes back down. And if we see a pop, or if we at least see somewhat of a bounce and not kind of an absolute kind of rolling into bearish territory, it's generally signaling a bullish continuation, which is very positive for anybody who needs relief or who's been a little bit bored or whatever you want in life. I think Bitcoin green handle is something that we're all kind of rooting for. So when I'm seeing kind of a bullish continuation pattern start forming, I'm seeing hourly sentiment start to hover more in bullish sentiment, or hourly sentiment is starting to hover more in bullish territory. These are good signs that I look for. So just like Alex asked, what are the key levels? So this trend line that I formed right here, it happens to coalesce with 39K, which we put in the newsletter and in the community first, as we always do. That 39K is very much a make or break area for Bitcoin. If that fails, then it's very much 3750 and 35K in play. But one of my favorite things to do after looking at sentiment is look at the VPSV indicator. Now, what this does is it basically gives you, and I'm not going to dig into the whole nuts and bolts of this, but it gives you something called a point of control. And the point of control is a very heavily contested area, as demonstrated by both volume and actual trading action. So obviously these little numbers, these little bars right here are indicating volume, as it indicates over here, but this indicates where probably where literally the most heavy traded area was, and where it was a point of contention or point of control. And as you can see, if you look historically across the chart, a lot of trading happens to be end up being support and resistance when you actually factor in these lines. So 42K was my magic number because we may form a new point of control here just because that's where resistance is. But the next major level would be 42.8 or 43 as Bitcoin tries to reclaim an area that was heavily contested prior. And so it's a great way to use, sentiment and technicals. So sentiment is telling you, okay, we're leaning bullish. Traders are thinking in this direction. Now, if this comes to fruition, what are my targets and what actions do I need to take? Now, we're looking bullish. 42 was kind of my magic number in the community today. We formed a POC around 41.5, so I was not 100% correct. But if hourly sentiment continues to stay bullish, like we expect it to, then 42K is still very much in play. And if 42K is held, then we would expect 42.8. And then from there, we would be able to make a better decision. I would say that this area would be a great resistance level to then drop back to where we are now, to then form a neat little range and eventually lift out of it, which would also actually form an inverse head and shoulders as well. See the left shoulder, head, and this would form the right shoulder if something like that were to play out as well. So plenty of bullish price action to be assessed, but obviously we need to see that come to fruition and watch for the levels that I demonstrated to actually be hit before continuing for further trades.
Yeah, and when also with Ethereum, we have that bouncing back as well, and Ethereum is what a lot of us pay attention to because that's basically, if you're into altcoins, that's our treasury, right? That's our USDC of sort, and we kind of pay attention to the price flow there. Let's take a look at that, but after that, that's when we're going to start sinking a little. I want to start going back and forth with you on some opportunities that you're seeing, that you're following in the altcoin sector, and also to kind of give people some guidance as far as, hey, this is what I look for. This is what I think is a red flag when it comes to swing trading.
Yeah, sure thing. So immediately just on Ethereum, that's a little bit different than Bitcoin, is it already kind of looks like it's forming what wants to be an inverse head and shoulders. So it's very good to see that, if Bitcoin is looking bullish, obviously we use that as a very starter metric for the rest of the crypto economy. But like Alex said, Ethereum is very much an ETF of ERC20 tokens. So if ETH is performing well, then other assets on ETH that have good narratives and good fundamentals are likely to perform, well as well. So when we're looking at ETH, I think this is a little bit more clear than Bitcoin is, we've got a little bit more tame sentiment, but it's pushing into the bullish direction. We're having another bounce at the neutral level. Obviously, price is continuing. This is exactly what you want to see. We check the daily level. We pushed into bullish territory. This looks like potentially a mini inverse head and shoulders forming. So we would hope that to see hourly sentiment kind of bounce and lift higher. If you would make a bet, you can see this quote unquote sentiment support at the 45, 46, 47 level. Now, if that holds, then you would expect sentiment to continue higher and price action to follow. So we've got our sentiment idea down. Now, what does that mean for price action? So this is leftovers from my previous research that I wrote in the newsletter as well as the community. But 2,900 is very much a make or break level for Ethereum, like 39K is for Bitcoin. But Ethereum is a little bit more thick with points of control. Now, why is that? It's a more of a tightly traded asset. It's not succumbing to insanely. It is succumbing to insane swings, but it's a much more, like I said, it's difficult to describe, but it's a lot more tightly traded. So what's happening right now is the points of control. We've got double points of control here that obviously acted as initial resistance. We now have support here that was proven earlier in the day, and then we've got support down here. So if price action were to falter, we would expect to see 30.50, then we would expect to see 30 flats. But if this level does hold and we expect bullish continuation as demonstrated by sentiment, we would expect 3,100, 3,110 to be, the level that we need to bust through. And if we can bust through that, then it's 3,170, and hopefully 3,240. But after these resistance levels, you can see what's happening. We reach the resistance, we come back down to the previous point of control, we head up to the next one, we come back down, and this is the pattern that it forms. And obviously, as you get higher and as RSI gets more extended, you have to watch out for volatility and a random decrease in price action. Sentiment is not going to tell you everything, but it is giving you the general direction in which things should continue to flow. So like I said, if we beat 3,100, it's 3,170, and then hopefully 3,240.
Let's go down. I'm going to share the dashboard real quick. Toggle the daily sentiment here and see where some of the bullish sentiment is flowing right here on the daily. And as you can see, these are some of the coins. These are some of the coins the money is bleeding into, as well as the sentiment right here. It tends to be, this one's actually a little bit of a mix from what I thought earlier. They're constantly switching up. I see in these down markets, there's a lot more thinly traded coins and less named coins that are going, very small market dominance coins. When it comes to opportunities, what are you seeing? What are you following, Nick? And give us some pointers on as far as what indicators you should be looking at generally, not as a foolproof structure.
Yeah, so when I typically, I'm at the point where Bitcoin and Ethereum are always my main focal points, because when you kind of know how things react and you've been trading something long enough, it creates an easier system. And I would encourage anyone who is either earlier in the middle stages to pick a basket of assets or something like that to continually track every day, because you will learn the patterns. You pick things up much quicker when you follow a certain set of coins, because you start to understand their flow, you recognize the technicals, things start to pop a lot more easy. But I think in the context of what Alex is saying, like, how can I find scalps? How can I find new opportunities? How can I find diamonds in the rough? Now, one of my favorite things to do is actually sort by trading volume. So Alex, if you want to click, on the far right, and sort that ascending by trading volume, this is a fantastic metric.
Look what's at
so
top.
I think you've only got your favorites on right now.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. So you can see here, this is crazy. And I think anyone who's been trading for a while has noticed, like, hey, when the volume picks up on a chart, either it's going in an extremely downward projection or upward projection. And that's what volume means. It's being traded more heavily. Money is turning hands more quickly. There is more demand. The supply generally is staying the same, unless people are selling in perpetuity. But this gives you fantastic opportunities. So when I go to match this up, I think like Trust Swap, or Lisk are two immediate ones. It's bullish across the board. It's got 100% sentiment, or 100% increased volume. Its tweet volume is another 50%. Look at this, actually beautiful. So it's lifted out of bearish territory into bullish. Price has followed. It's currently ranging, and daily sentiment is only lifting higher. If we look at the 7-day, there you go. There's the 7-day sentiment. Go to hourly and 1-day sentiment for me, Alex. And we can see that hourly sentiment is again picking up and has rejected bullish or bearish territory multiple times. So this is a fantastic opportunity. I mean, am I trading this right now? I don't know. I'm going to go check the chart after we get off this call. But there's your exact opportunity. So if you not every single one is going to be perfect like that. But like, we just clicked 3 buttons, and after trading Bitcoin and ETH north from the knowledge that we got in the TTC community, now we have another beautiful opportunity for an altcoin to trade. For potentially a 5 to 10%, intraday trade or more, and that's really the beauty of it. So I think Luna is another one. Even though it had a 10% boost yesterday, I went into the community. I'm like, hey, sentiment's still bullish. What was the other metric as well? It was staying in a range, and sentiment was bullish. You would expect a token that has already done double-digit price action to falter a little bit, but as I demonstrated, I told the community where the point of control was. It was at $88, and I said if it can survive 88, it will go higher, and it moved up another 6% in the last 24 hours. So there you go. That's the value of tracking sentiment and using that as a primary indicator to then go and track exactly what type of trade you want to use.
All right, very cool. Like it. Um, let's talk about Scent Galaxy for a little bit here. We did put out an update about a week and a half ago. I will say that the whole Trade the Chain team was in Miami, including Sunil, who came across the pond from London to get with us on this, as well as Danish from Barbados. So, we met a lot of members, a lot of stakeholders, and a lot of people who've been following the project for us. We did shoot out that release. The update, and just to give Nick a lot of credit here, one of his positions, and there's no official title for it, has been really managing our dev team, particularly over the last month and a half now, because our devs are actually, majority of them are located in Kiev in Ukraine, and we actually lost track of them for about a week's time before a couple of them left the country, and as well as seeked alternative places to kind of work. So Nick manages is the point person between our beta testing group, which is in our Discord community, as well as our devs on the ground. As of 2 weeks ago, after I think it was 3.5 months duration, 2 weeks ago, we had cleaned up about 99.5% of all the bugs. And first, I want to give a big hand to all of our Trade the Chain members. There it is. That's the app in action right there.
Face scan and right on it, and I'll click all the buttons for you guys to show you that it's working. So I'll send. We can send. We can receive. We can swap. We got Changely. We got 1inch. We got Trade the Chain sentiment data. We got our wallet. We got our profile.
Lift it up a little. Lift it up a little higher. Your name.
Was I? Did I have it on here? But yeah,
people see it.
It's got everything. Everybody's gonna see it soon.
Almost all the bugs. There's like 1 or 2 quirky bugs left, but all the functioning bugs. We are done. It's taken 3.5 months of everyday people who are members, beta testers, to work it out. Nick has overseen that whole project and worked with the devs on each individual case. And we are at the last bit. So we have about I want to say it's 3 weeks projected, so I'm going to say 4 weeks. And the last little bit isn't solving problems. It's ready. The last little bit is integrating the Trade the Chain native app into the platform. So that's it. And then it's going out to the public. Not only is it going out to the public, in about a month's time, also is the Cent utility token program. So there's a full utility program Cent on the Cent token that's going to be more or less simultaneously announced with the product release of Scent Galaxy. So that way there's value driven to both, and you'll see exactly how they're going to both work together in an ecosystem from day one. Okay, there's no waiting on that. We're going to have that button down. It is fantastic. I couldn't be more excited. 5 blockchains in one platform, with more being added, all with internal swap functionality.
Integrated sentiment data, as well as the full TTC platform and community on the back end to pair it very well with. So
this is a huge product release. I know every day people use things like Trust Wallet or MetaMask or something like that. This isn't even in that category. It's a combination, the culmination of swapping and non-custodial wallets on multiple chains all put together in one platform. It's going to be ridiculous. There's nothing like it in the market. June will be a year since we first went into development of it. That is what's happening. We're 4 weeks away from global launch approximately, and it's just the Trade the Chain native app that's being integrated into the swap platform. That's it. It works. It's beautiful. You saw it on Nick's
and our incentive and loyalty program is going to be more
Ah.
robust than anything in the market currently as well.
Yeah, the multi-level utility tokenomics of Cent with the Cent Galaxy platform and Trade the Chain for that matter is going to be ridiculous. It's been a simultaneous effort. I know disappearing from YouTube to really put a lot of time into it with the team wasn't what everybody wanted, but we're back. That's it. Nick, any closing things you'd like to do? You know, maybe we should do a show where we give people before launch, maybe next week. I don't know. We'll have to discuss this offline, where we actually go through the phone and show people the working visual of the app itself in the wild.
I agree. We can do a little phone screen share. We can give a little tease of what's going to come in terms of road mapping in relation to Cent token. And all of that. So yeah, there's plenty of teases and things that we would like to share with everyone very, very soon. So happy to do that.
Sounds cool. Yeah, we'll work on that. I will be at ETH Amsterdam in 48 hours. Looking forward to seeing that conference. We just came back from Miami from Bitcoin 2022. It's great to meet up with everybody, particularly the ones we haven't seen quite some time. So ETH Amsterdam in 48 hours. I'm looking forward to it. And we will be doing another markets episode, Nick and I as well, in the end of the week. All right. So thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of the day and hang on to your handlebars. Bye, guys.